All right, everybody. The Boston Celtics have a new owner, $6.1 billion. How you like me now? How you like them apples? We'll talk about Bill Chisholm and what we know about him, what we're going to find out, and what maybe it means for the future. Plus, everybody's talking about who's the best third option in the league. Look no further. We've got you covered here. Plus, we're going to check in on the Celtics City documentary rocking over on HBO Max. Episode 3 just dropped this past Monday. We've got our thoughts on that and more. You guys know the deal. This is Green with Envy. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, this is your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me today as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. Greg, do you think in your lifetime you're ever going to have as good of a return as what Wyc Grousbeck just got today on his purchase of the Boston Celtics back in 2002?
Maybe, and I'd probably blow it. Just like percentage-wise, I'd probably blow it within like a week.
Yeah, 100%. Like the amount of return on investment, ROI for the kids out there that Wyc just got and Wic's family. And I know it's so weird with all of these deals because there's so many more players than just the names. Like Wyc is, as we found out in the sale, his daddy's money, right? Like his dad's the one that actually has most of the money. Bill Chisholm, your new Celtics owner or primary Celtics owner, however he's going to be labeled, there will be a label presented upon him.
He's the
Him
guy
and
that
his
gets the
investors.
headlines.
He's the guys that will get the headlines here going forward. The Boston Celtics, who went up for sale late in 2024, have sold for $6.1 billion. Now the largest sale for a sports franchise in North America, which, Greg, is pretty crazy considering they don't even own the fucking building they play in.
Yeah, I know. I mean, 6.1 billion, man. I mean, Grousbeck bought the team for like a little over 300 million, right? And he turns it into
360, I believe, is what it was back in 2002.
so he turns that into $6.1 billion. I don't know what the actual percentage return on that is. I can't do that math right now.
When I asked you, I realized I didn't have the answer to that. My own, like I was actually, I don't. That's so many percentages that I don't know what the percentage is.
Right. It's like if I had the first time I invested in Bitcoin or Ethereum, if I had never sold it and I was, I probably would be roughly around that same return on investment. But of course, I sold it at different price points and bought back in. And at this point, I don't even know if I've made money.
Right. It's been in and out, and you're like, it looks good now, but like, have I made money in the long run? Have I not? I
You
mean,
know what I haven't
regardless
made
of
money on, Will?
what?
My house. I know. I know for goddamn sure I have not made money
Yeah.
on my house.
I'm right there with you. We bought at the peak of of the COVID housing surge, especially here in Austin. It's a whole other story. But Greg, this is really fascinating here, especially with the Celtics and the way that their roster is set up. And I don't know if you saw this. I'm not going to go into it in detail, but did you see Pags, who is still part of the minority group? It was not assumed, but it was theorized that he had kind of the inside track to become the majority owner. Him and his group did not get that, obviously. And he put out a statement that, I'm not gonna lie, it kind of sounded like some sour grapes. And I know when we had I forget his name, but I had a guy interviewed here from the New York Post on that talked a little bit about Wyc and Pags, I don't really get along too well. And, Wyc is going to stay on for a couple of years here as the CEO governor while this transition happens, at least the next 3 years. Sounds like he got that in the contract. I'm very curious if that was part of the deal breaker of Pags not getting it and being like, no, fuck you, Wyc. I don't want you around here anymore. But it's very interesting to see Pags put out a statement that basically was talking about how disappointed he was that they didn't get it. He built up a team that had deep pockets and resources, and that for them, he specifically mentioned the finances of keeping this team together would not have been an issue. Don't know what that holds for the future, but Pags put it out there pretty plain as day that he was going to be willing to pay this impending large tax bill that is going to be looming over this team as soon as this next offseason.
Yeah, the estimated tax bill for next season is $219 million.
I thought it was getting up to 500 next year.
No, next year I have it as tax bill is going to be 219, but like with
So
all the
cumulatively, it will be
it would be
500.
around
Yeah,
500. Yeah.
gotcha.
The tax bill itself is 219, according to Spot Track. Yeah, but Chisholm definitely, he put out his own statement, and it was really interesting to see because I didn't know anything about this. We got the text from Lip Tack this morning, like Bill Chisholm, and I was like, "Is this a baseball player? Like, who is this? I don't even like why did I
Did
get
the
that? Why
Yankees
did I
sign
get
this
that?
guy? Why is our friend from New York texting us this?
Right. So this is what he said. He said, growing up on the North Shore and attending college in New England, I have been a diehard Celtics fan my entire life. I understand how important the Celtics are to the city of Boston. The role the team plays in the community is different than any other city in the country. I also understand that there is a responsibility as a leader of the organization to the people of Boston, and I am up for this challenge. My partners and I have immense respect for Wick, the entire Grossbeck family, and their indelible contributions to the Celtics organization over the last 23 years. My favorite part right here, Will. We look forward to learning from Wick and partnering with Brad Stevens, Joe Mazzulla, and the talented team and staff to build upon their success as we work to bring more championships home to Boston. Anytime a leader comes in and does the Matt Ishbia, like it's now my way and we're going to do things like because I know best, it's not
Right.
going to. When you come in and you say, the first year that I'm here, I'm all ears. I'm not going to do shit. I'm just going to listen and learn from everybody. Obviously, I'm sure he's going to do more than just listen, but I think that's if you're coming in with that mindset, to me, that is the sign of a good leader. Someone who comes in and analyzes and sees what's working, what's not, and doesn't take, a hacksaw to the limbs just like Elon Musk did to the government.
Right. And listen, step one, saying the right things. Saying the right things. It seems like, especially as we're watching heat culture, evaporate in front of our eyes, Celtic culture, and as we're seeing in the documentary Celtic City, which we're going to talk about later on, like this is a long-standing tradition of how the Celtics look to operate. We don't write it on our court and we don't put it on our jerseys like, some other franchises out there that may try to pretend like they have this long-standing culture, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing. And so it's good to hear that. We've seen it in other areas where you can say the right thing and then you come in and do the Ishbia thing, right? So
Mhm.
we've seen that happen. So not to say that's immune, it's still one of those things where you have to be shown it, but starting on this foot with those type of statements, and it seems like Mazzulla and Brad Stevens have been somewhat involved, obviously already having some types of conversation and dialogue with these potential owners. Sounds like they are on the right track. Greg, just for the audience at home, looks like it. And to be fair to this guy Bill here, really hard to find a lot of this guy on the internet. So he at least seems to be pretty squeaky clean. Really hard to find stuff. Through some digging, through some reports that have come out here, looks like his own net worth. Now there's a group of investors, so he's not buying all of this at 6.1 billion. This is the new basically valuation of the Celtics with Wick's portion being bought out. It's I don't know, there's certain semantics in there to that. But his net worth is about 7.5 billion from what I've seen. So I do think that's interesting of note because that puts him kind of middle class in the tier of billionaires that exist
Mhm.
in the NBA. Which, first of all, it's bananas to put the words middle class and a guy who's a 7.5 billion net worth in the same sentence. Like it just feels stupid, but
All
that
relative,
is the
baby.
reality, right? That is the reality, though. And when it comes to this bill, now there's more to this bill that's coming due to the Celtics than just the finances because there's a lot of the CBA has made this exponentially harder for hey, you can't just pay it. Now Brad Stevens can't do anything with this roster, right? Like that's the other side of this
Mhm.
coin when it
Yeah,
comes
good
to
point.
Celtics fans, being like, hey, is this guy going to pay it or not? There's other implications to it. But if he is willing to pay it, this isn't Steve Ballmer money. It's not, even Miriam Adelson money, who's the Mavericks owner, but they might be cutting costs. Dan Gilbert has more money. Like there's, like I said, he's middle of the road. So it is something to keep in mind here. And especially as we learn more about who else is a part of this investment group, because I think that will tell us a lot about what that means for some of the decisions that we see, especially in the next 2 off seasons, which are going to have a real impact on whatever happens with this current championship core.
Yeah, it's been fun kind of seeing mostly through Twitter and Blue Sky. Digging up on Bill Chisholm because there isn't a lot of him. Dalzell, she retweeted something from a Micah Sharon.
All right, I think we are having some technical difficulties here, so let's work this out while we get this corrected here. But yeah, in the long run, this is going to be an interesting move for the Celtics to see what Bill Chisholm and what this group is going to bring here will dictate a lot with what happens in the offseason, in the trade market, see who comes, who goes, and really, regardless of whether or not this team ends up finishing the deal here with bringing home Banner 19, it's going to be a major part of, because they're going to be the ones that have the ultimate say here when it comes to what happens after this season. Greg, do we have you back?
Where did I leave off on your end? Because I
You
was good
were
on my end.
quoting a tweet from I know you just kept talking and I was like, I don't think this is coming through. But so the part where I left off, and we'll have to go back to the recording and see where this all lines up. But you were explaining the retweet from Noah Dalzell.
Okay. So did I get to the point, like the levels that I had to go to, the levels that she's going to?
It had literally
So,
just started reading and then it broke up and it happened. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it was just dead air. And I was like, yeah, he's frozen.
okay. So once again, this is for the social media clip. Okay. This is from this is from Celtics Reddit. Username Dan Duquette's burner. Title Bill Chisholm's donor history.
Excellent burner.
I researched this guy like I was going on a first date, except it's a first date where I know I'm going to marry the guy and likely be with him for the next several decades. He and his wife have donated millions of dollars to the Junior Diabetes Research Foundation, some gifts toward their alma mater, Dartmouth. Lots of political contributions from his wife, all toward Democratic Party candidates and aligned organizations such as Stacey Abrams' Fair Fight and Emily's List. I, for one, am just grateful that he's not a diehard MAGA guy or a casino magnate, or both. Hilarious. And that's just like the stuff that people are having to do today to try and figure out exactly what this guy stands for and kind of what he's about. It was great that he released that statement, to your point, to kind of put a bow on this, going back to the Pags statement. That was the first statement that I read today, was Pags' statement, which made me feel like a little sad for Pags that he was unable to like kind of get the deal done. He did leave a little bit of room at the end of that statement to say, hey, if something, falls through, there's a chance that we're going to be ready. So yeah, it's just cool to see. Celtics got new ownership, and all good things come to an end, my man.
Yeah. Hey, Celtic City, part 10, the Chisholm era. That's what's coming next. That's what's next on the docket here. But no, it's interesting new development for this season. Not just gonna be kind of along for the ride. This offseason, though, that will be a major talking point, and we'll start to see if his actions back up the words that we talked about. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll continue to learn more. As we learn more, we'll discuss it here on the podcast. So stay tuned. For now, we want to transition to a topic that has been making its way across the airwaves in different areas here. And I think it started since the Lakers upturn with Luka and LeBron and Austin Reeves starting to go off. And it started this conversation of who is the best third option. Who's the number one third option, as if that's not confusing, in the NBA? And I actually do think this is an interesting conversation and question to ask. And I've thought about it a little bit, off and on over the last couple of years, especially where the Celtics are so deep these last few seasons. So Greg and I thought, let's put to the test. Let's see if we can actually come up with our top list of third bananas. And let's start here, Greg, with the Celtics themselves, and then we'll start to parse out how we want to go about creating this list. But for the Celtics, I have my vote for who I say is our third banana. I think there's three options to look at. I think for me, there's one guy I would lean to, but how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think your answer is Derrick White, right?
It is Derrick White. Yeah.
Okay. So I would agree with that. My question though is not just who's the Celtics third banana, is how many bananas on the Celtics qualify as third bananas? How many Celtics bananas qualify as second bananas? You know, if you throw Kristaps Porzingis on another team, could he be somebody's second banana? Probably not. We saw that happen in Dallas. Didn't really work out. Derrick White, probably not a second banana. But I do
Mhm.
think that Porzingis, White, and Holiday all could be a third banana on any team, right? We saw Drew Holiday do that already in Milwaukee. At this point in
Exactly. I
his
was going to say
career,
that.
is he a third banana? Maybe, maybe not. Like he's definitely shown in the absence of, you know, Jaylen Brown here or there, Jason Tatum here or there, he can definitely step up. He's looked a lot better of late. I think he's got some special basketball left in him. So my question to you, Will, is how many other teams in the NBA do you think have more than three bananas?
Ooh, that's a good. Okay, so I haven't thought about that part, and yeah, I agree. I think it was Derrick White, KP, and on certain nights Drew Holiday fit this mold. And for Drew Holiday, what I'm curious of is if he has another good postseason like he did last year, how many teams are going to talk themselves into trying to trade for Drew Holiday as
Mm.
the third banana based upon what we just talked about of the decisions that are coming down the pipeline, win or lose the championship this year, and what the Celtics might have to do. Like that's an interesting plot line for me. But to your question of how many teams would have more than one person that might qualify in this particular question. I mean, I guess written down here, I have because I have a couple teams where I struggle to figure out who's the third option, who's the fourth option. I'm
Okay.
stopping using the word banana because we've said banana so many times. I want a banana, and I'm going to eat a banana after this. Actually,
Oh,
that was a
can
part
I
of it's part of my plan, anyways. But
can I ask you? I was
yeah,
thinking a lot about this because we got some time to fill here. The derivation of the phrase "third banana" comes from a second banana, which is a showbiz term, right? But then it got me thinking, like all phrases come from some sort of reality, right? So like was the idea of the second banana and the third banana thinking about a bunch of bananas and you're like, "You know what? Once these bananas are ripe, the first banana that I eat is going to be great." By the time I'm ready for a second banana, like that second banana is still probably going to be pretty good. But by the time I'm ready for that third banana, if I ate the first banana when it's ripe, is the third banana now not so good because it's not as ripe, where it's like too mushy and it's actually better for banana bread? Am I going bananas right now, saying banana all these
yeah, there's a
times?
lot of
I
banana in
don't
here.
know.
So here's my first question, then we'll get off the bananas. Who eats more than like I'm assuming you're not talking about one sitting because eating more than one banana in a sitting feels like a weird move.
Right. They know that, and that's also part of this is like is the idea of second banana. Like you don't need that second banana. You really
Yeah.
only needed that first
That's
banana.
part of why I
You're
love a
eating
banana.
three
A
bananas.
banana I almost have a banana a day, right? Like that's
Good for
usually
you.
kind of one of the
Good potassium.
first things I have. Yeah, usually either one of the first things I eat or it's like my midday snack is usually a banana. And when I don't have bananas in the house, I feel like I'm like I got to go get bananas. It's one of the few things that I feel like
Mm,
I need as part of my I'm not going to call it daily, but semi daily routine. But there does get a point where I'm like, that banana's a little too brown. Even though it's probably fine, something about it
yeah.
that I just don't feel right about. But yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. We'll have to figure out the answer to the banana lineage. But back to your question. While we've been stalling, I've been thinking about how many teams would potentially have more than one option as someone that may qualify as that third option. I think the answer that I would lean on is probably 3 to 4 teams is what I'm thinking of
That have
would
a third
potentially
option.
that have a third option that have potentially more than one third option is
Oh,
what
that
is what
have
I think
more
you're
than
asking.
one third option. Okay, can I
Right.
guess?
Yeah, go for it.
Can I guess the teams? Um, First guess, I'm gonna go Knicks.
Yep, that's one of them.
Second guess, I'm gonna go Cavs.
Yep, that's another one.
And my final guess, Wolves.
Yeah, You're spot on. Those are the teams that
Okay.
I was thinking of, that because for some of them, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think probably
And when we say
Cleveland.
option, let's clarify. We're not talking about give the
Yeah.
ball to them in crunch time. It's just like best player.
Best player. Yeah.
Yeah.
Best
Yeah.
player. Exactly. And that's what I think is going to be interesting about this, is kind of clarifying, like, who do we consider? Like we just said, Derrick White for us is the third guy. And I think part of that's availability. He's also awesome. And that's just why you got to choose him over KP, right? Like he's awesome and he's available way more of the time. So for me, that's why he gets the third spot. Like, let me ask you about Cleveland. Who do you consider their third option? Let's start there.
Mobley.
See, interesting. See, I went Darius Garland. Either
Mhm.
way, though, it doesn't change my list that I have, because I think I would have them in the same spot that I have regardless. But
Yep.
and that's where also, if we wanted to stretch it out the way that we did with Drew Holiday, you could do that with Jared Allen. I think, where you're like, yeah, he's not really your third option, but he is someone that, like, on a certain night, you're like, damn, he had 2020. Like, you know what
Mhm.
I mean? Like you could squint and see that. Knicks, self-explanatory.
I
It's
think you could make an
Brunson,
argument with
Pat,
the
Bridges, OG.
Warriors.
So I put Draymond is who I have on my list as their third option. Who would be the guy that you squint and is also potentially a third option, or you
Kaminga.
would just potentially say Kaminga? Okay, yeah, I don't. Kaminga's too inconsistent for me, man. I see the ceiling there. I don't think it's quite there. But let me ask you this, so we can start. This will start to get us transitioning to our list a little bit. So I don't think every team obviously has a true third option. When we're really talking about like a big three type option, not necessarily a big three in the way that it's three all-stars, but in the
Mhm.
way that it's like a real hierarchy of first guy, second guy, third guy, maybe a fourth guy. And that's where maybe it debates.
Yeah.
Not every team has this. Most good teams, I will say, do. There's about there's two really good teams this year for me that I don't think qualify for this, and they just have a plethora of kind of like good guys that just not really enough separation. But I
Kings.
think most good teams, say that again.
Kings.
So actually three. Kings I would put in that, and then Rockets and Pistons were the other two that I
Mhm.
was like, Pistons are just Cade and then a bunch of guys. The
Yep.
Rockets, I'm sorry. I'm not wasting the time with calling Şengün and Fred VanVleet a first and second option, and then having to figure out Jalen Green, Thompson, and like those are just a bunch of nice players. Like
Right.
that's how
Pelicans.
that team works. Yeah, Pelicans are another team where they were bad, so I just didn't even like
Yeah.
really dig into them too much. Ultimately, for me, Greg, I found that there were 13 teams that I was willing to consider. Hey, there's a clear option one, clear option two. Here's
Okay.
the clear option three, and then I took those 13, and that's what I chose to rank. How'd you go about this?
So I guess my question to you is, did the number one on the team have to be like a clear number one, or was it just like he's the clear number one on that team?
Um, I think for that team, that's kind of the way I looked at it. So let me give you one example here.
Okay.
And this is somebody that didn't even crack my top 10. They're at the very edge of my list, and you could kind of put them anywhere from 11 to 13. I have like a group, like a kind of a tiered group of guys. And I'm like, you could kind of put them wherever. Like Jalen Suggs, I put on my
Mhm.
list. And so it's like Paolo, Franz, and Suggs. Like
Mhm.
that's kind
Yep.
of the
I have
way
that.
I look at it. And so that's an example of, well, I mean, Paolo is like a true number one guy, so maybe not the best example, but just about all of these teams, if I think I'm looking at it right now, have a guy that their first two options are real dudes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's
Yep.
nobody on this list that I'm looking at right now that I'm like, I'm stretching to call their first two options, not like real heavy hitting dudes in this league.
Okay. Can I guess the 13 teams?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. I'm gonna go obviously Celtics,
Yep.
Thunder. Um I'm I didn't rank them, but I'm just gonna, so my rankings are not gonna be how I see them.
Yeah.
Um Clippers, Celtics, Thunder, Knicks, Lakers, Bucks, Pacers, Magic, Cavs, Nuggets, Wolves, it's 11, Warriors, Mavs?
I think Bucks is the only team that you didn't say.
Okay, I have the Bucks on there as well. Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Mavs. I did Mavs. Mavs were like I could throw a PJ Washington in here, but I'm just throwing him at the end. Like it's not really worth a
Mhm.
conversation for me. So Mavs were one team I consider, but I just didn't bother writing them down. But
Okay,
yeah,
so
you got all
you
the other
you're
teams though.
you're calling Lopez their third option?
Yes, I called Brook Lopez the Bucks third option. He's at the back end of my 13 guys that I ranked.
Is he better than Derek Lively?
I mean, listen, like I said, I guess I said PJ Washington. You're right. I guess it would be Derek Lively on the Mavs. For both of those guys, they're somewhere in that back end of like
Mhm.
11, 12, 13,
Yep,
14.
yep.
So yeah, so that was the Mavs was another team that I considered putting on here, but then we're having a Lively versus PJ Washington third
Mhm.
banana debate, and nobody
Yeah.
wants to hear that.
Yeah, and they're both fourth bananas, let's be real.
Exactly. So that's why,
Yeah.
like for me, that's the back end of the list. Where for me, it's like, yeah, these guys deserve a mention, but this isn't going to be the top for me. The toughest part was like the top 8. I think was actually really stacked,
Mhm.
but it was kind of like the 9 through 13 for me. That was kind of like throw them in whatever order you want. I'm not gonna knock you for it.
Okay. I didn't actually rank, my third bananas, to be honest with you. I wanna hear how you rank them.
Yeah, let's do it, and then let's kind of figure out like where I was at. So, like I said, I kind of did. Let me go my 9 to 13 because this is where I think it's you can knock around this order a bit, and then the top 8 is where I think you could really have some different opinions, and almost any of them could be right. So, for me, back end, Miles Turner was number 13. That was the Pacers representative at the very bottom. I had Brooke Lopez right below him at 12, Jalen Suggs at 11. Again, mix up that order. Not going to stress on it. I had Norm Powell to start my top 10 based off a lot of the strength of this season. And with Kawhi coming back, kind of fits into that hierarchy. And then number 9, this is where I had the Wolves. I didn't know who to consider their third option. This is why they were one of the teams, which you correctly guessed, that I was like, yeah, they probably have 4 options, and at least 2 of them could be the third option. So I was debating between Gobert and Nas Reed as that
Yep.
third option. Neither of us are big Gobert people, but listen, the dude's won 4 defensive player of the years. Like, might not be my cup of tea. He's clearly valuable on the court and
Mhm.
in the
Yeah.
right, setting. And I really like Nas Reed. So I put them collectively as a pairing. I put them at 9. So those were the bottom 4 for me.
Can you say the first couple? 'Cause I tuned out for a second.
Yeah, it's all good. I'm used to it. It's usually what happens. No, Miles Turner, Brooke Lopez, Jalen Suggs, Norm Powell, Rudy Gobert
Okay,
slash Nas Reed.
cool. I'm with you. Keep going.
Okay. All right. Here's where I think it starts to get pretty interesting. The next 2 guys, I'm going to group them together. And these are guys that I think you could absolutely make an argument for that I'm underrating them and they're a little bit higher, but I think they're a little bit amplified by the situation that they're in.
Okay.
So I put them in this category. So I've got Draymond at 8 and I've got Aaron Gordon at 7. Both of
Mm,
those guys I think could probably be higher, but Aaron Gordon just gets the Jokic boost. Not that he's not a really, really good player, but there's some pretty good guys here that are going to be above him that I think if he didn't have the Jokic boost, I'm not quite sure. And then
mm,
Draymond he's just Draymond's part of the Warriors cycle, right? Like
right.
they operate based around him and Steph. And so, we've always people have always said like I wonder what Draymond looks like in another situation. Honestly, it's probably not great. So I just think for me that's why I have
Mm.
Draymond a little bit lower, but I'm very open to pushback on the 2 of them being too low.
Oh, yeah, first of all, I'd flip them. I think Draymond's far better than Aaron Gordon. I like Aaron Gordon as a player, but I think
Mhm.
Draymond's impact,
Shooting the hell out of
uh
the ball this year too, 45% from 3.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, teams are gonna dare both of those guys to shoot when it
For
when it
sure.
matters, right? Um, yeah, I think Draymond's better than Aaron Gordon. I mean, even somebody like Chet, Chet obviously is great. Is he better than Draymond? Like, he's more talented than Draymond is, but, like, Draymond's pretty damn good, man. So I
He
I
he He's great, man. And I just like yeah, it's really tough. I try to think about like if it's a little bit of like the Simmons trade value. Like when I got to the bottom of
Mhm,
my list, I was like, all right, who would I rather have? And I kind of tried to do it that way. But some of it is very circumstantial. And that's the point of like a third option is sometimes
right.
your scenario dictates your success. And for
Yeah,
those 2 guys, they're in the perfect situation for each of them to be super impactful.
I'd probably have Draymond much higher towards the top. Even when you look at Chet, even when you look at Reeves, um, even when you look at somebody like Derrick White, I think Draymond, his impact and like the way that he's able to just make his imprint on the game, um, it is circumstantial. He would not be the same player without Steph Curry, but that's the fact of the matter. He's with Steph Curry. He's going to be with Steph Curry
Right.
his whole year, so you have to factor that in. So as a result of that, I think the reason why the Warriors were struggling so much at the beginning of the year was Draymond Green is not a second banana. He's not a second option on a
Right.
team. right? So when you move him back into the third option with Jimmy Butler there, now you see the Warriors have just taken off because Draymond's in his rightful place as the third option on that team. And I think that's what makes him special as a third option. He can't move up. He can't go do second option shit that Chet
Right.
Holmgren can do and that Austin Reeves can do, because both of those guys can elevate their game, especially on the offensive end. But when you factor in the best third option and the way that he functions within that offense and within that defense, I think he's probably top 3 in this list for me.
So I think one of the things you just said is one of the things that I probably held a little bit higher for who I ranked is you're right. He can't jump up to that number 2. I think just about every guy in my top 6 can do that.
Okay.
Right. So for me, that, and they're not consistently that, which is why they're not, but I think they can do that. So I think that for me was the reason by. So let's put Draymond to the side. Let's revisit him when we get through the rest of the list, and maybe we can find out where you think is best to slot him. So let's keep going here. The next couple guys I had, I'm going to put these next 2 guys together here, and I want to read you some player A, player B stats, and you tell me who you think that you might want. So player A, let's go with him. 26 years old. For this year, averaging 19.6 points, 4.5 rebounds, 6 assists on 44.6% shooting from the field, just under 37% from 3, 87% from the line, and has played in 60 games this year. That's player A. Player B, also 26 years old, played in 57 games this year, 19.1 points, 6.3 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 48.7% from the field, just under 40% from 3, 89% from the line. Which of those 2 would you go with?
Man, I think one of those guys is Austin Reeves.
That is correct. He is one of those guys.
Okay.
You want to take a guess who the other guy is?
Can you read me player B's stats again?
Yeah. So you're right. Player A is Austin Reeves.
Right.
Player B played in 57 games, 19 points, 6 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 48, 40, and 88% splits.
Is that Garland?
It is not. We'll get to him. It's Desmond Bane.
Oh, Desmond Bane. Good call on that. I do have him listed here. I didn't have him. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have them as my 5-6, and it's kind of a toss up to me. And like,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, when you think of Desmond Bane, going back to the Draymond argument, like Draymond's better than Desmond Bane. I think Draymond's better than Reeves. But when you compare these 2 guys, I'd probably want Bane just because I believe in him as a defender more than Reeves. I don't have much evidence to say that that's true. But I think I would probably rather have Bane than Reeves. But Reeves is really damn good, man. Every time I watch him play, there's more and more that he kind of adds to his bag, and he has a real fuck you to him.
Yeah, and I think Bane's got a little bit of that too. Like Bane was got in a fight the other night. I can't remember who it was with. It was somebody that maybe it was Durant or something like that. And it's like, I like that Bane has it. Bane's got a little edge to him as well. So I think for the 2 of them, I was surprised to see just how similar like those numbers are. Like those were nearly like spot on for each of them here. And you're hearing Austin Reeves because he's getting the LA bump. And it's like, man, Desmond Bane's kind of doing the same shit, and he actually averaged more points a year ago, and a little bit more 2 years ago. So Desmond Bane does have a little bit of that next level. I think he's probably leveled out where I thought maybe, hey, we were like, is this guy going to become a consistent all-star? And he still might make an all-star game or 2, but I think they're pretty close right there. Again, like you're saying, Draymond
they're going to live. They're going to live in the CJ McCollum realm their whole life.
And that's a lot of what happens to third options. It's very rare that you get the Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, KG, where all 3 are all-stars, or the LeBron, Wade, Bosh, right? Like that doesn't happen nearly as much anymore. And so, so I think they're very close. Again, we'll circle back to Draymond. I know right now, so you put Draymond above the 2 of them. Let's go to my number 4 option here. And this is where the New York Knicks come into play. And this is where I don't know if you have a hard lean one way or the other. For me, it's kind of similar to the Wolves, where I had a Gobert / Reed. For me, this is a Bridges / OG. This is supposed to be Bridges 100% confirmed, no doubt about it, if they're really hitting their ceiling. But I don't think it has been this year. So for me, this is still kind of a slash spot right now. And maybe this is the one silver lining of Jalen Brunson getting hurt. Bridges is going to have to handle the ball a little bit more in this
Yeah.
stretch. And so we'll have to see how that goes. I think they're like 500 since Brunson went out or somewhere around that. I know they lost the Spurs last night. So we'll have to see how that works out. But I think and part of that is on Bridges. Part of that's probably on Thibodeau and just being like, I have Brunson. Why would I ever take the ball with him? We need to win every single minute. It's like, I get it, man. You also got to like kind of work the team together for the long run, which I think is Thibodeau's biggest weakness. But I think for me, that's why I'm kind of split with the two of them, but I still think they're both high level third options.
Okay. I agree. It's between those two, but let me phrase it to you this way. If
Yeah.
you had to choose between the two of those guys to be on your team in a 1-game scenario, game 7, who you picking?
Probably OG.
Yeah, me too. I'm picking OG.
I mean, I think it also depends who my other top two guys are, but more times than not, it's likely OG.
Yeah, I don't even know if it would make that much of a difference for me. If we're just thinking like top end talent, we have it 1 and 2, right? I think OG is a better player than Bridges. Like I don't think Bridges' defensive reputation. I've always kind of been down on Bridges as a defender. Maybe it's just because he can't guard either of the Jays, but OG, I've seen it, and I've seen him be like a Kawhi level defender. I've never seen Bridges get to that level of defense. He's a nice defender. I think he does, in certain matchups, he can be a problem, putting his length on a smaller guy, fighting over screens, things of that nature. But in terms of like, you need a wing stopper, it's not Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges is a nice defender, plays passing lanes really well. OG is just like a fucking wrecking ball out there on defense. And you don't need the great thing about a third banana is you don't need them to do that much on the offensive end, right? They're basically just 3-and-D guys at that point who maybe get elevated in a second unit to the second option, but you're rarely going to ask them to do anything initiating offense. Bridges can do it. We've seen him do it, but for a shit team, right? The Nets weren't good with him as the first option. So I would rather have OG. I'm going to say OG is the third option on that team.
OG or Draymond then?
I still think I'd take Draymond, dude.
Hey, listen, like I said, he's the guy on this list for me that I was like, I got him lower, but I absolutely see the argument to put him much higher.
Yeah.
The one pushback I will say to you is I do think it's very valuable having that third option be able to handle the basketball. Like I do think that's actually something that I would say you're slightly underrating. Now with Draymond, that's obviously something he can do. But I think like with a lot of guys, being able to either handle the ball or being able to be some form of a hub, either offensively or defensively in a big way, like that does make a big difference. But like from just a handling the ball perspective, it can be a luxury as a number 3, but I think it is something that a lot of elite teams, for the most part, will have. So that way, when you're resting one of your top 2 guys, theoretically, you're going to have at least 2 of those other guys out there, right? So it gives you the ability to balance your rotations a little bit. All right, let's go. I got top 3 here. So let's get into the top 3, and then we'll figure out where I messed up, where we end up putting Draymond in, and see where we go from there. But number 3 is a guy that you already mentioned. I got Chet Holmgren at number 3.
Yep.
Might be a little bit too high, a little bit too early. But his ceiling, this is part of it, is like we talked about earlier. He might actually be the number 2. This might be J-Dub a year from now, right? Like this might be that. So that for me is why I put him at 3, despite the fact that, it actually surprised me, Craig. He played all 82 games last year, despite missing his rookie year. Played all 82 last year. Unfortunate injury early this year. Comes back. We saw him in Boston. He looked great against the Celtics. And so when you see a performance like that, it really kind of sticks out to you that despite how strange this dude looks like Quasimodo, but just skinny, but somehow dude puts in work. So I've got him as my 3 option. Might be a little too high, but I think once again, looking at it as all the guys I've listed behind him, I think every team so far would go, no. Chet's the guy. And honestly, in a year or two with a little bit more evidence, the teams in front, or at least the next team, would probably pick Chet over him as well.
Yeah, I think this is where you can't make the argument that Draymond's actually better. The more I've just kind of been considering it as we've been talking it through. I think when you can go 7-2, who can handle and can be defensive player of the year level rim protector and rim deterrent, and the stuff that he can do just on the perimeter and everything Chet Holmgren brings to the table, man, I'd not be able to pick Draymond Green over him at this point, which leaves Darius Garland and Derrick White. Correct.
Yep, that's exactly where we're at. I got Derrick White at 2, and I've got Darius Garland at 1. And this
Mhm.
is where you said earlier, like you would have considered Evan Mobley the third and Darius Garland the 2. In my
Yeah.
head, it was regardless if it's Darius Garland or Evan Mobley, I'm putting either one of them at 1. So for
Mhm.
me, that was kind of the, doesn't matter who we pick. The Cavs,
Yep.
Cavs have, in my opinion, the best third option in the league. But Derrick White right there at number 2. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, if it's gonna be Mobley, like there are games where I just see the limitations that Darius Garland has out there, especially with teams like the Celtics who can just go
Yep.
killer whale hunting. That's why I think talent wise, Darius Garland kind of blows Derrick White out of the water. But in terms of like actual impact on the game, I think Derrick White, he's Derrick White. We don't need to extol Derrick White. Like everyone knows how we all feel about Derrick White in Celtics Nation, right? But if it's Mobley versus White and just like how much of an impact that dude can make as literally maybe the defensive player of the year, I would say Mobley over White, but I'd probably go White over Garland, even though I think Garland is the 2 on the Cavs over Mobley.
Right. That's where it gets very
Yeah.
confusing, right? When we're trying to talk about this and parse it out. So what if we just say Cavs guy,
Yeah.
which means it's one of them. This
Yeah.
would be what I think your final list would be, and I'm cool with because I think this basically with one change lines up with what I had down here. So here's what I think we have as the final one. You tell me where I might be missing here. Number 1, we've got Cavs guy. Number 2, we've got Derrick White. Number 3, we've got Chet Holmgren. Number 4, we'll slot Draymond. Number 5, we got OG. Number 5, number 6, we've got Bane. 7, we've got Reeves. 8, we've got Aaron Gordon. 9, we've got Gobert/Reed, followed by Norm Powell, Jalen Suggs, Brooke Lopez, Miles Turner. And the end of that list, whatever. We could debate it. I don't really want to spend the time doing it, but I feel like that's a pretty good list of the best third options in the league.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. The one guy who I think maybe this time next year we're thinking is much higher on the list. Let me ask you before I give you my guy. Who do you
Yeah.
think would be the guy that could jump into the top 5 this time next year?
In the top 5. Ooh, I thought you were going to lean into Andrew Nemhard was going to be a guy that would be on this list. I don't know about top 5. That threw me off a little bit.
So I'm
How
saying from the current list,
Okay.
so of the 13 that you just mentioned,
Mhm.
who from 6 through 13 could jump into the top 5?
I'm going to guess Jalen Suggs is who you're thinking.
Yep, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I was ready to trade it all for Jalen Suggs back in the day.
I know. I know.
And
You
he
want
was
Marcus Smart
great. Like
2.0.
the Magic
He was
haven't
great.
been as good since he got hurt. As much as people want to talk about Paolo and Franz being out, when Suggs went down, they just lost their spirit. And I think
They stayed fine while Paulo was out. They were good while Franz was out. As soon as Jalen Suggs was the guy out, that's where it's all falling apart for
right.
the Magic. So yeah, I'm with you. That's why for me, I was like, I got to include him on this list. Like it
Yep.
seems, even beyond his play on the court, the results we're seeing without him, like it's having a massive
Mhm.
impact. So I'm with you. I think he could absolutely. I think he very well could jump up to that Reeves Bane level
Mhm.
by next year and like be
And I
in
think
that
there's an
category.
argument if he didn't get hurt this year that he is there.
Yeah, he could be right in that category. I
Yeah.
think that's 100% accurate. But that was a fun exercise. That was cool to kind of think of and kind of walk through here. I know it's been on a lot of debate shows. So if you guys want to shout us out, direct them over to our feed here. We've got the official list. We've got it locked in here, and we'll check back on it at a later date. It's a fun exercise to do. Greg, before we wrap up here, let's do a quick check in on Celtics City. Now, 3 episodes in. This last episode really focusing on the era after Bill Russell, transitioning into the John Havlicek era, into the Dave Cowens era, and ultimately culminating in the drafting of Larry Bird, which will lead into episode 4. We'll get into the Celtics, Lakers, Magic, all of that stuff. But episode 3, what was one of the biggest takeaways you had from that?
The way that they ended it. I thought the way that they ended that episode was sick. Leaving it on Larry Bird and just like thinking about how, because I was like, wait, are they just gonna like how long? Because I didn't check how long the episode was gonna
Right.
be. So when they started talking about Bird, I was like, oh shit, like how long is this episode gonna go? Like, are we gonna do the rookie year of Bird? But then they end it with like the image of Bird and Bird just being like a badass in college and like getting drafted. And I was like, oh shit, like this next episode is just gonna be all about the 80 Celtics in the Larry Bird era stuff that we just weren't ready for. We weren't born yet, right?
Yeah.
I'm so excited for it because I've watched, but I've read the books and all that stuff, but I want to see it, and I think the documentary is doing a really good job of showcasing parts of Celtics history that people like us and our age just weren't that familiar with. And I thought they've done a great job so far, and I couldn't be more excited for the Larry Bird episode.
Yeah, I like this episode because I think this is my biggest gap in Celtics knowledge is,
Mm-hmm.
Russell and Kuzi, I at least have gone back and know like enough about them in
Yeah.
that time frame. And it's, I think there's like 12 teams in the league, right? So it's
Yeah.
like it's pretty easy to kind of wrap your head around. But like as the league starts to expand, and then you get into, like how much I wasn't actually, I think, fully aware how much Havlicek overlapped with Bill Russell. And
Mm-hmm.
so then seeing that, which by the way, one of my favorite things watching was, I think this was more episode 2, but the Havlicek steals the ball. Havlicek steals
Johnny
the ball.
Havlicek stole the
Dude,
ball.
did you pay attention to how bad the clock management was in that scenario leading up to it?
No.
Dude, okay, let me just paint this quick picture for you.
Okay.
Leading up to that, it was so there's obviously no 3-point line. It was 110 to 107. I think they're playing Wilt and the Sixers in this game. I believe. I think it's conference finals, I believe. And it's 110 to 107. I think it was Sam Jones took a 24-second shot clock violation on purpose because they were just trying to waste time because you can't hit a 3. So they were like, whatever, go ahead, take a 2. So they literally got a 24-second shot clock violation with 8 seconds left. There's still 8 seconds left. They took a purposeful 24-second shot.
Oh yeah, it's coming back to me now. Yeah.
Yeah. That led to the Sixers inbounding the ball. They scored in 3 seconds. So it's 110 to 109. There's still 5 seconds left in this game. That's when Russell goes to inbound it and the wire's hanging across the back. He hits it. And so it goes,
which I completely forgot
bounds.
about. I had heard that story before, but I completely forgot about it.
Exactly. Same. So I'm like, there's 5 seconds left. They're only up by 1. Like insane clock management all around in what was happening in this, letting a 2-pointer happen, volunteer 24-second shot clock violation. And then that leads to Havlicek making the play. But all I can think about in my head is, how did I not remember just how absurd this clock management was? And imagine what that would look like in today's landscape.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. And, now that I'm reliving episode 3 in my brain and you talked about like the gap that you had, I just like didn't appreciate how great Dave Collins was and like JoJo White.
Also that he's a madman.
Dude, the fact that Dave Collins was just in the middle of the season was just like, I gotta go away. Can you imagine if that shit happened
he did the Rodman.
Today?
That's the Rodman when he left for Vegas.
But he left for like months.
And then he came back in one game and just sat in the stands. just like with popcorn. That's wild.
Crazy.
And this dude won an MVP. He won an MVP. Like this is not just like, I don't know, like wild man, like six man on your team. That's a little bit of a wild card, right? Like, dude, this is like your franchise center that was just like not feeling it for a couple weeks and then just checking back in by like buying an $8 ticket to go sit in the stands and eat popcorn and like not tell anyone he's there. I don't think it sounded like he just showed up and was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna check in.
And he was upset because they traded Silas, right? And I didn't realize, one, I like completely forgot Silas was even on the Celtics. And then 2, like that's like the gaps that I have from the 70s Celtics. And then I had no idea that he was that important to the team and that he was traded. And because he was traded, a lot of people look at that as like a lost championship for the Celtics.
Right.
But another thing was the overtime game against the Suns. Did I watch this correctly that they stormed the court and that somebody fought the ref before the game was over?
That's what I have in my head. On my notes. They literally had a ref in a headlock. A fan had a ref
before the game was over. And then
because they thought they won, but there was still like 2 seconds left or 1 second left or whatever.
But what I saw was that after that fight, the Celtics shot technical foul shots.
Well, yeah, you know what it was? It was a strategic thing. So they didn't have, I think the Suns didn't have any timeouts left. And so what you could do, at least then, I don't know if you can now, is you can take the timeout, but you get a tech. And so the Celtics were up 1, but then they could still advance the ball.
And then the Celtics there was no technical fouls on the Celtics for their fans rushing the court and somebody
putting the ref in a headlock? No, nothing. No, no, dude, that's the craziest part of this documentary up until now. We got Red Auerbach punching the St. Louis Hawks owner in the face before the game, a head coach of one team punching another owner in the face before a game. The way that the Garden crowd used to storm the court is like it honestly gives me anxiety watching it.
Right.
This is like
Yeah.
70 years later, and I'm getting
And then
anxiety watching this.
there was another timeout where I think it was Silas in the same game, right? Who called a timeout, but the ref was just like, "No, you didn't call the timeout. You're good. There's no technical
Yeah,
foul there."
exactly. Yeah, he was just like, "Nah, just we'll just pretend like that never happened." And yeah, dude, watching the ref in a headlock blew my mind watching that. Like a random guy just came out from the stage. And here's the thing, at that time, this is the crazy part about it. At that time, the entire arena rushed the court thinking the Celtics won the game, and the guy still put the ref in a headlock.
It's great, dude. People in Boston are fucking crazy.
Fucking nuts, dude. Like, what is happening? Like, I don't know. That's been in the first couple episodes. I think one of the things that stood out the most to me is just like, we talk a lot about players these days and they're, fighting back with burner accounts or sticking up people on Twitter. Man, it went both ways back in the day. Like you ran your mouth like to somebody on the court, or you ran your mouth, on the court to somebody where you're like, I don't like you calling me Westbrick. Like, bitch, you better be ready to throw hands back
Yeah.
in the day. Like everybody on both sides, whether you're a ref, an owner, like there was the access. Jesus,
Mhm.
like my God. I mean, probably for the best that we don't have brawls breaking out all the time, but this is just, it's organized chaos in a lot of these environments.
Definitely. And then obviously, the episode's talking about the racial issues in Boston and
Yeah.
the bigotry and the hatred and busing,
The
which,
famous photo with the flag.
yeah, yeah, which I had seen the photo before, but I never really got the background of it, which I thought was enlightening to see that, just how horrible that was and why people have this image of Boston as this like viciously racist place, which it can be, but it isn't like, I wouldn't say it's like the ethos of the city, but when you see an image like that, you understand like, oh shit, like this is why, like this is the origin of why so many people think of Boston as racist, is because of that. And I was thinking like, who the fuck is that guy? The guy with the flag? Like, is he still alive? Do we know his name? Has he talked about this? I was fascinated by that. Like, did
Yeah.
this guy atone for that? Do they ever know who that was? I'm sure somebody has done an article on it. I haven't taken the time to look into that, but I thought that we were gonna get like that guy either atoning for it, talking about it and how horrible it was, and how he's changed as a person. And we just like didn't get that. Which is pretty fucked up.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's an iconic photo that, like you said, I think at one point I knew a little bit of the background to it, but it was good to see them dig into it and really talk about like not try to skirt over like the racial history of Boston,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
it's dark and there's on both sides where it's interesting to see the juxtaposition of, hey, the Celtics were like we're the Jackie Robinson of the NBA with the way that
Mhm.
they drafted black players, the first team to draft a black player, first team to have an all black starting lineup, first team to have a
Mhm.
black NBA head coach in Bill Russell. And then on
Right.
the other side of it, you have the way that their players are treated in the offseason or when they're on the road, the things that
Mhm.
are happening with busing and segregation in the city of Boston. So I think the documentary is doing a really good job of painting both sides of that and giving you the full scope. So
Right.
really excited for episode 4. That's looking like it's going to be the here comes Larry Bird to Boston to turn it around after this brief 2-year downturn for the Boston Celtics. So that's going to be exciting for episode 4. So we'll cover that after that episode airs. But that's going to do it for this episode here of Green with Envy. No Friday coffee and C's for the next 2 weeks. Greg's officiating a wedding this weekend. Next weekend, he's the best man at my wedding. So no coffee and C's for the next 2 Fridays. We'll likely be back on the schedule after that. But we will still have content for you. We've got some that we've pre-produced. We still probably have time for maybe one more podcast. We'll get in there before, but we do have plenty of coverage for you guys. So make sure you stay locked and loaded here with Green with Envy. Follow us across all of our social medias. Hit us up, CelticsNoise@gmail.com. Greg, any final thoughts before we send the crowd out?
No final thoughts. Fun episode.
Love it. No final thoughts needed. Great episode. Good job by us. See you guys later. Peace.